Hello, this is How To Bob, and in this video I'm going to show you how I installed a vessel sink in a Vanity. So to get started, we look at my drain here. It's going to need to be replaced. You can see it's broke, so I'm going to take my discussion plate and loosen the nut that's behind it. That'll enable me to remove my drain here. I'm just going to replace the whole drain assembly just to be safe. So once I get that nut loose, I can bring the washer out and then just work back and forth the drain here a little bit back and forth just to get it out of the wall. And I get that out of the wall. You can see it's corroded real bad up in here, so it's a good idea to replace this. I'm going to get all the junk that's in there, all the old corrosion, and I'll suck it out with the vacuum just to make sure that I have a good clean drain to start off with my new Vanity. It's a good idea to make sure that that's good and clean before you get started. So bring my new Vanity in and just checking for clearances and make sure everything works and fits the way I want it to. So as I look inside the Vanity, I can see where my drain and my trap is going to go, and you can see there's a shelf here. It's going to go here. The trap's going to be in the way of the shelf, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the shelf right now. Let me get my trap set up and I'll show you how we're going to fit that in there. I'll take my 1¼ inch trap and I'm going to go back and put plastic in instead of the chrome. So I've got a taper here, so that taper goes to this taper, and there's no washer needed here. And I'll take my washer and nut, I put the washer with the taper to the taper, and then I put the nut on top. Doesn't have to be tight, I'm just putting that on there so I have it and I don't lose it. And I got it all loose, so I can take my other nut and washer, and this is what's going to go to the wall. Put the taper end towards the wall, and you can see that I go to put this in and it just won't fit. So I'm going to go ahead and take the shelf out now, because this is where my trap's going to end up, and I'll see if I can lower it to the lower position and maybe the trap will work with that. So I'll put my trap in the wall and put the nut. I'm not going to put it on real tight, I just want to leave everything loose. I'm going to lower my shelf down to the lower position and tilt the trap out of the way here and put my shelf in. Then I put my trap back in where it's going to lay, and you can see there's a little bit of space underneath, so that'll work out just fine for me. I want to level my Vanity up, put some shims under here. I'm going to cut them off once I get it to the correct level. You can see it's right on where I want it to be, so I'll cut those shims off, and I'll put my countertop on next. Make sure it fits where I want, and you can see there's a curved edge on this one, so I'm going to pull the Vanity over a little bit so that the curve on the countertop matches the curve on the cabinet. So there'll be a little bit of space in between the cabinet and the wall on this one, but that's okay with me. Next, I'm going to make sure that it's level front to back, and you can see that's pretty level. I've marked a stud here in the wall. I took my mirror out because I'm replacing that as well, so I can see where the stud is. So I'm going to drill my hole to hold the Vanity in right where the stud is. And you can see you can't really mark a small hole with a pencil, so I've got this neat little pen that I picked up. It's real skinny and it marks through holes. So I just stick that in the hole and draw on the wall where my hole location, my mounting hole location is going to be, and then I can pull my Vanity out and you can see the hole is marked very well there. So this is a soft marble tile on this bathroom, so I can just use a hammer drill for this and just use light pressure. You can see the mounting holes from the previous Vanity. Then I'm going to line up my hole and I'm going to put my screw in. I'm not putting it in real tight, I'm just holding it into place. And I'm going to mark my other hole and drill a hole there, and again I'll use my marking pen. So now I have my location. I can remove the Vanity, pull that out of the way, and I can drill my next hole using my hammer drill. And this hole doesn't have a stud behind it, so I'm going to use a plastic anchor much like what was in the bathroom from the previous Vanity. So once I get that tapped into place, I can then move my Vanity back in and put my screws and make sure I line up my holes in the back of the wall. And before I tighten my screws up, I want to put shims in. You can see there's a gap behind my rail here, I want to make sure I put shims in here to fill in that gap. I don't want to pull my rail all the way in. That'll stress the cabinet. So I'm going to do that for each screw that I put in, put a shim behind it, and then I can tighten my screws up. And then I got that tightened so I can cut my shims off, get those out of the way. And then I want to prepare my top, and I'm going to take the protective cover off just where I need it to come off of, because I'm going to be working with this top for the next few minutes. Put my faucet in. I have a special vessel faucet here. It's a Delta, I believe, and I put my grommet or washer in the faucet the way it goes, and I stand my countertop up and feed my supply lines through the hole. Then there's a little bracket here that goes in the back over top of the bolt, and I get this nut and I tighten that down. Once I get it kind of snug, I can move my faucet to where I want it to be, and I want it to aim straight down towards the drain. So I'm trying to get this as straight towards the drain, right to there, because that's going to be centered inside the bowl. Once I get it where I want, I can go ahead and snug down the faucet and start working on my drain. So I take my drain apart here. We use a little bit of teflon sealing tape, wrap it around the threads a few times. Then I can put my drain back together, and then I'm going to tighten it up by hand as tight as I can. Take the top part off here, and that's what's going to sit inside the bowl. So it recommends putting some silicone in here. I use some kitchen and bath silicone. You can use plumber's putty sometimes, but this particular vessel recommends using silicone. So I see a big gap in the vessel, so I'm going to use an awful lot of silicone here. This is a lot of silicone, and I'll wipe out the excess. Next, I want to go around where the bowl is going to meet the countertop, and I just set the bowl right where the hole meets, and I can set my drain inside the vessel sink. And then this part is where I put the drain underneath, and I want to make sure it's nice and flat, and then I can push my rubber washer up against the bottom of the countertop. I want to make sure it's even all the way around, get it hand tight, and then once I make sure it's even all the way around, I can tighten it up with my channel locks here, and you can see it's even all the way around, and make sure my washer's sitting nice and snug. And I clean up my silicone, and I'm going to go ahead and install my supply lines. So I put my supply lines on, and then hand tighten down the faucet nuts here, and it's a whole lot easier, I found, to do this with the countertop out of the vanity. Just makes it a whole lot easier. So once I get these hand tight, I'm going to hold the tubes, the supply tubes for the faucet, and then crank them down a little bit more. They don't have to be super tight, just to make sure they don't leak. And I don't want to twist the tubes to my faucet, so I'm going to hold that with a wrench to keep that from twisting. Next, I'm going to go back in and take some clear silicone, kitchen bath silicone, go around the edge of my vanity, and that's what's going to hold my countertop to the vanity. Then I bring my vanity in and gently set it in place. Make sure I get it lined up where I want it to go, and then I'm going to go underneath and hook up my drain. I need an extension tube because you can see the drain on the vanity is not going to reach my trap, so I've got an extension tube here that I've measured and fit, and I have to cut it, so I have to take my drain apart here to get that in. That's why I didn't tighten it earlier. I'm going to get it all set up. So I'll put my nut and washer, put the tapered end facing the tapered end. And what that does is just extend the drain of the sink there down to the P-trap. So I put my nut and washer on. Then I can slide my, let me get this shelf out of the way again. Slide my extension tube up there. The washer slides down into the taper, and then I can reassemble my drain. And I'm just putting it hand tight for now. Once I get all of it together, I will go through and make sure everything's sitting the way I want, and then I'll go through and tighten every piece of my drain here. Get it hand tight. Just go through and make sure each one of the drain nuts is tightened enough. So the next thing I'm going to do is hook up my hot supply. So I want my supply to go straight into my shutoff, so I've got it bent slightly up. This is a plastic tube, and I'll cut that to length. Then I'm going to put my nut on, and then I've got my compression ring, and the taper again goes down towards the shutoff, and that slides on. You can see my compression ring there and my nut, and I'm going to hand tighten that down. Once I get that hand tightened, I need to hold it with 2 wrenches, a wrench and a channel lock, or 2 channel locks, and tighten down the nut. And then I'm going to use the same method, cut my cold side to length, put the nut and compression ring on, and slide those down. And again, I'm going to hold the shutoff when I go to tighten these with a wrench, and tighten it with my wrench and hold it with the channel lock. So now that I'm all done, I can go around and silicone around the wall to the vanity, and that's how you install a vessel sink. I'm How To Bob. Thanks for watching.